What's going on, guys? Today we're going to reinstall the transmission in the Wildcat, and if you're looking to reinstall a transmission in your car, take one in, take one out, this video is going to totally help you in understanding that process. Alright guys, exciting day here. We got the SP400 back for the Wildcat, and I'm stoked to get this reinstalled in the car. I'm a little bit bummed out. The shop painted it on me. I didn't ask them to do that. It was the original aluminum finish, and now it's painted, and it's not exactly what I wanted. I didn't ask for it to be painted. They didn't ask me. I didn't think they would because it's an aluminum transmission. Regardless, hopefully the transmission is rebuilt to a top standard now like it should be, and we've got the torque converter rebuilt as well. And yeah, I'm just gonna have to live with it being black, I guess. If I want to paint strip it someday, I can. It's amazing that it lasted 58 years without needing a rebuild. Now it has been rebuilt. Torque converter had to get rebuilt because it's a Super Turbine 400. It's a switch pitch, so it's got the special blades inside of it, and then a whole new rebuild on the transmission itself. Back here, now I can get this reinstalled back in the Wildcat. So I just re-greased all the U-joints on the drive shaft. You can see the grease just popping out through there. This way everything rides nice, and I'm just cleaning off all this dirt and grimes too. So make everything nice, put it back better than I got it. We'll degrease and clean up all the bolts and hardware too. Scraped off a good pile of old greasy sandy dirt. And now I'm gonna give it a quick little sand and spray it with some black and make it look a whole lot even better than it was. Sweet! That is so much better. I've been wanting to do this since I bought the car. Finally did it. Heck yeah. I also sprayed the transmission dipstick tube before too. It's been curing over here. Looks really good. Hell yeah, that's what we're talking about. Put things back better than you got them. Same thing here with these little spacers that were going between the cross member and the passenger side of the chassis. Just getting them a quick sand down by hand, nothing big, and I'm just gonna spray them because, again, I don't want to put this back together. I want to put it back like this. That is much better. Hell yeah. Again, guys, this doesn't take long. Just a few seconds there hand sanding with a piece of 80 grit. Nothing professional and crazy for that. For this thing here, I hit it with some 80, then I just hand wiped it. I'm about to spray it off again. I'll do a little 120 just because I want this thing to look a little bit nicer. Make sure the actual paint adheres because you don't want to just spray over old greasy stuff. Get a little bit of a bite there in the metal. You can see some scratch marks there from the 80. Again, I said I'll take it down to like 120, maybe 180, just so we won't see too many scratch marks, but let's do this. Take 10 minutes. It's literally all this takes, you know? Just make your stuff nice. If you don't care about your stuff looking good, then whatever, but I'm not gonna put back a nice new looking rebuilt transmission with old greasy junky stuff. That's just not the quality that I go for with my cars. All right, now it's down to 120. And like I said, make sure you degrease after. The point of the sanding for the metal actually gives it a mechanical bite. Those little tiny marks actually let the paint bite in, instead of just painting over old greasy stuff where it's just gonna flake off on you. And then you're gonna use some carb cleaner, some parts cleaner, acetone, mineral spirits, paint thinner, something like that, and degrease all of this because this used to have engine oil and transmission fluid all over it. So spray it up real good. We're gonna wipe all this stuff off after we sanded because you want your parts to be clean for spraying. And you can see all this stuff here, which could potentially have led to fish eyes and little spots where the paint wasn't sticking. It'll kind of like make a little spot, if you're not familiar with a fish eye, where the paint doesn't adhere and there are little droplets that almost look like a negative space where there's no paint and then it circles around it. So if you want your stuff to look good, these are the little steps that you do. Another important note when you're spraying metal parts, there's thin edges obviously all the way around a piece like this. If you spray just from this side here and don't actually cover that edge, you're gonna have a tiny little piece of metal that is unprotected and bare metal, and that can rust on you. So always make sure that you spray your edges, and that's honestly a place where I'll start sometimes when spraying something. So I might just go right here and boom, make sure that edge is already taken care of, and I'll be conscious of getting that all the way around the rest of it too. Because I like my stuff to look nice. Boom. First coat complete. Hell yeah. And I'm just hitting my second coat, and this should be good. Sweet. All right, guys, the day has come. It's time to get the Super Turbine 400 put back in the Wildcat. Got this thing rebuilt by the shop here locally. It looks like they did a great job, but we will find out for sure once we get this thing installed and start running it down the road. New things to note, besides the obvious of all the internals that they went and replaced. You'll note that I added a aftermarket deeper pants. This way we've got a little bit more fluid in the transmission. You can kind of spread out heat among more fluid volume, and then also it's got a plug on the bottom so I can actually drain it if I ever were to need to take the transmission out again. But fingers crossed, this goes for another 58 years like it did the first round and never needs to come out again. And then I've also got the drive shaft over here, shim plates for going across the cross member, the inspection cover, dipstick tube, and miscellaneous other stuff ready to go in. The only thing that we've got to do to complete this job, if you guys remember, I've got to get underneath the car right now, and I need to drill out or maybe try and weld a nut to the end of that bolt that broke here in the frame for the cross member. This son of a biscuit. So if you guys missed the first video, this is literally the only thing that went wrong in the entire deinstallation and removal job. Getting out the transmission was pretty much scotch-free, but the car has a full size going from one side to the other cross member, and yeah, this one bolt, the last one, I was going super slow. I was using lubrication and everything, and it still wound up snapping on me. So there might be enough here that I might be able to get a nut welded to it, and then I can try and heat it up, see if we can't break that rust free and get it out. And then plan B would be to actually drill through the middle and then slowly expand out to larger and larger size drill bits until ultimately just the little bit of thread is left from that bolt in the female part of the threads of the frame, and hopefully kind of just pick those out, and then you still retain your threads so you can actually thread a new bolt into there. And then if it happens to be that you ruin the threads, I would just have to drill it out to the next size, pass a bolt through, and then have to try and fish a nut through the front side of the frame and get that on there and secure it that way, which would be kind of a pain, but it's doable. So let's give it a shot with the old welding technique first. Time for a new cover for this old boy too. Hell yeah. Heavy's looking good too. Also, another note you'll see in an upcoming video. These tires are 16 years old. I got this car back in 2007. That same year, I purchased these Krager SS's and these Chupacabras, but they have seen better days. And honestly, I forget that I've owned the car as long as I have. So it's about time for them to go. Still plenty of tread left on them. I've only put maybe 20,000 miles on the car since I've owned it. But for the safety of everyone on the road, including myself, and also wanting to put Alex and Harley in here now, I think these have done their job. So these will be spare tires that I can throw on some fun, you know, kind of roller wheels for project cars or whatever. And we've got some new rubber coming in. Grab the old faithful welder and give this a shot. Give ourselves the best shot at success here, cleaning up the metal. Obviously where it broke is already pretty clean, but still you want clean, white, bare metal, so you got a nice spot to weld to. That'll be good for our weld to stick on that side. I also hit the top side on this mini belt sander and also beveled into it because the weld is going to go and penetrate right through the top and into kind of the threaded area of this nut. So it's got this little coating on it. The welds usually stick to it, but sometimes it doesn't. So again, this will get bare metal. So now the weld can actually grab right onto that metal, go straight through that threaded area and land on the other side of the broken bolt. Again, we're going to be welding through this front side, so that's why I just cleaned off that coating. And now you can see where it's going to sit here, and it's actually just threaded just slightly onto there, so that's perfect. So now I can weld straight through and fill this whole thing into a plug weld, fill up that whole empty cavity, and try and get that top side of that bolt to fill all the way up, and just keep plugging it up until we get this thing ruby red hot. Let it cool down, and then we'll hit it with a little bit of penetrating oil and see if we can't get this thing broken free. Ground on the end of this bolt, see if we can't get this to be a ground for us. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. Okay, wish us luck, guys. Hot dog. Oh man, cook that thing. Okay, too hot. Let's try again. You know what? There might be enough there to get us rotating. If that weld stuck, the half of that nut stuck to the rest of that might just be able to thread out. So we'll get a wrench and give it a shot. Yeah, cardboard underneath welding is never a good idea. I don't know why. Oh yeah, all right. I did that for you guys as a demonstration to show you not what to do. Ironically, it not only smells like after you shoot some buckshot, but all these little welding BBs coming out of it, just like some buckshot. So yeah, don't do that. Okay, let's see if we can't make any movement. Something is moving. Is it just the nut? Can't really tell with all this sunlight behind me. Oh man, it's just the head of the nut. The weld did not stick. Dang it. It's so frustrating. All right, well, we can try again. And then if we don't succeed here, we're gonna have to drill it out. We might have had a bad ground last time. I cleaned up that bolt a little bit more, got a little bit more threaded. I'm going a little bit slower here. Might be able to get it this time. Give that a shot, see if that doesn't work. Hopefully that weld's stuck. Okay guys, I don't know. Let's see. That feels pretty solid. I think we might have got it on this one. Damn it. That felt so good. Thought it was going. Did not work. Okay, well, we're gonna have to try and drill it out. So unfortunately, there's not enough head of this sticking out to where once I put this through, I don't think I can get a bolt on this. So we're gonna have to go the hard way. All right, I'm not giving up. We're gonna try a bare steel bolt. Okay, I'm trying one more time. I just got some weld to stick here right on the old threaded piece. Grabbing just a raw steel nut. I'm gonna try this one because maybe those zinc plated just too dissimilar and it just wasn't sticking because obviously they were popping off. Maybe it just doesn't like this. You could see where the weld just literally laid on top of the other piece, but didn't actually stick and penetrate. So see if we can't get this to penetrate. Cranked up the voltage as well, and I think we're getting it now. That looks really good. That's what it should look like, so fingers crossed. That could be the one. Let this cool down for a second. And you know, it's trial and error like this sometimes, guys. Could have been getting bad ground, didn't have enough heat, enough wire speed, enough voltage there. Maybe, like I said, dissimilarities with those other nuts. But let's see if, what do we get here? Anything? Hard to tell. I think it's doing the same thing from before though. Yeah, son of a bitch. All right, we tried. Guess we are drilling it. Womp womp. All right guys, ground that flat, and now I'm just gonna try and get dead center, drilling through it. This is a tried and true method. I've done this a few times with cars, and I will just get it nice and centered and just keep progressively drilling out to larger and larger diameters until I can just peel it away, and hopefully it works. I'm fighting a little bit with this bottom piece of the floor here for getting this thing nice and square, but it looks like I've started it pretty good. So wish me luck, guys. Just want to get as square with this as you possibly can. So I ground away a bunch of that bolt so it was actually less material to have to drill through, so we'll try once again. I'm about halfway through it, I think, but it's hard to get a full angle on it because of this piece of the floor, so the top side isn't getting, it's kind of screwing up my angle here, so I'm probably going to wind up hurting the threads on the inside and ultimately just going to have to pass a bolt through it. There's access here through this hole on the front side, so I can very carefully try and get a nut and bolt through that. So we're just doing the best we can with what we got here. I'm almost all the way through it. You can see it's kind of starting to break just on the other opposite side of it, so we're nearly there. It's coming through. That's it. We did it. Okay, we just gotta excavate a little bit more out. You could actually see the female threads a little bit showing there. They're probably damaged though, so we've successfully drilled through the inside of a bolt. So, oh man, what a pain in the ass. That sucks. I might actually be able to tap this sucker. So I'm gonna go get dinner, but when I come back, we're gonna try and tap this and see if I can't get threading going again, because a lot of the threads on the body side still might be preserved there. You can kind of just barely see, yeah, where some of the bolt that I drilled through is laying in the female threads with the chassis. I think they still may be mostly there, so we might be able to save actually being able to thread a new bolt into this altogether, but we'll check back in a few. So I just ran a tap and die through this side just to clear it out, and now we're good on the side that was pretty good, and I'm about to run it through this other side that we were working on, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna get this. So wish us luck, guys. You can see the threads kind of coming back through. If I put a bolt in here, and I'm slowly working it back and forth, we are getting it slowly but surely. I am getting this thing rethreaded. Oh yeah. All right, guys, I've been fighting this thing back and forth, pretty much got it. It was a lot of work. This is like legit 2.5 hours of work just on this one bolt. And this is why the muscle car hobby is sometimes not cut out for everyone. And I just noticed these little tabs for the switch pitch sensor are a little bent. So I'm gonna straighten them out so this way we get good contact for the wiring going back on it. Much better. Cleaned this up previously, but here's the wiring. Just like that. Cool. I also soaked all the hardware in carb cleaner, parts cleaner, and gasoline. So this way everything would be kind of clean. And wire brushing real quick, but you put everything back together and make sure that we don't strip anything out. Putting on the new O-ring here at the base of the dipstick tube as well. Heck yeah. All right, guys, calling it a night. It's about 11:30. I've got work in the morning, so I'm just gonna give it a shot tomorrow when I get back. We've got everything prepped and ready to go. We spent like 3 hours fighting that area on that bolt, but ultimately it's fixed. Now I can actually thread a bolt into there for the cross members. So we did it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow when we go to reinstall this thing. All right, guys, we're back out here. Next day, I'm gonna try and do this in under 2 hours. See if we can do it. How you doing? Underneath the car right now. About to line the torque converter up the 3 bolt locations here on the flex plate because sometimes they're not an exact pattern. Now this one looks like it may be symmetrical, but sometimes you wind up with an asymmetrical pattern on your flywheel torque converter lineup. So what'll happen is it'll be underneath the car, transmission will already be here. I'll be coming from the front trying to get a bolt through this flex plate into one of these bolt receivers on the torque converter. And you'll get one in, you'll rotate the engine around, and you'll come into your second hole, and all of a sudden there'll be a little bit of a misalignment because this is actually maybe 12 inches between here and this is 12 and a half or something like that because they didn't do an even pattern. Like I said, on this, it's probably the same. I could also get a measuring tape and measure it, but I'm doing this right now. And I'm just gonna line it up and mark it and call A, and then write A on the other side of the torque converter. And then BB, CC, or just something like that to give myself reference. So when I put this into the transmission and then bring the tranny up here, I know exactly where to line up my bolt holes and there's no chance of misalignment. All right guys, I've got it propped up in there, and the little bit of a snout that sticks out from the front side of the torque converter here into the back of the crankshaft. So I'm not totally Superman right now. This thing is super heavy, but I'm holding it firmly nonetheless, but it's kind of held in there. And you can see these bolt holes are lined up perfectly with the spot I'm calling B. And over here on A, we're also aligned. So it looks to me like we're probably equidistant, but we're gonna spin this around. And I'll double check on a different location. Okay, and you can see we're lined up right there and right here. So I think we're equidistant, and that means it doesn't really matter. It's not keyed for a certain alignment. So I'll be able to just put this torque converter right into the front of the transmission, bring the whole tranny up here and not have to fight with that alignment. So that's a good thing to know. And like I said, this little snout that sticks out from the front of this torque converter here matches up into this back side of the crankshaft, so it kind of slots into there and helps align it as well. So it's another little additional alignment tool. I'm gonna pre-fill the torque converter before I go and install it on the car. So this way it's actually not going in completely dry. And Dexmerk is what was recommended by my builders, so that's what we're gonna go with. And like I said, once I get the transmission in the car, we'll fill it all the way through the dipstick, but this torque converter holds quite a bit of fluid. I think it's like maybe 3 or 4 quarts. So you don't want to leave this thing totally dry before you install it here on the front of the transmission. We're going to install this thing already pre-filled. Okay, and this converter is a 13-inch converter, by the way. So we're going to go ahead and pre-fill it, like I said, trying to hit the precision pour here. Hell yeah. I know I've been given a little bit of crap on some of my other videos to include oil changes for my truck and whatnot, doing the precision pour. Honestly, this is one of my few flexes. I don't always get it, but when I get it right, it just looks cool. Absolutely, I could and should use a funnel, but we're just hitting it with the precision pour right now. And you can see that this thing is just hungry. It'll fill up quite a bit. Okay, there we go. Well, that bubbling is telling me that it's getting close to being full. I'm not gonna go too crazy because when I go and stick it here in the front of the transmission, some of it might pour out. It could be a little bit of a mess, so that should be a good start for us right there. We've got about 3.5 quarts inside there. And now when I go to install this torque converter, you'll notice that it's keyed with these 2 slots here on the front. Once it goes inside, there are 2 keys. You can see one on this side and one opposing up here, if you can make that out. And so we just got to get those 2 keys lined up here, and you'll kind of see as I work it in, and it'll go on pretty easily. Okay guys, so as previously identified, we're about right here, kind of where this little knuckle is, and right here on this ridge. So that's where I'm going to try and get these 2 to line up, and you'll just kind of hear it kind of seed into there when it catches. If you've never done this before, I don't know, I'll try and explain it the best way I can as I go. If you have, you know what I mean. Being careful not to gouge the splines as I'm going in, and cart's kind of rolling back. There we go. See, now I don't think I'm all the way seated. I think I'm sticking out a little bit too far. So I haven't quite got those two notches to align with each other, but let me chalk this stand from moving. Okay, so here's a good example. You can see how it's kind of floppy. See all that play right there? And these should be in probably about another 1.5 inches. So this torque converter is not totally seated. You need it to be seated in here properly, or else it's not going to be engaging into the transmission and doing the job it's supposed to be doing. So let's pull it back out and try again. Okay, I'm going to line up my eyeballs on those keys. And let's try it again. We're still out. That ain't home. There we go. Oh yeah, there we go. Now we are fully seated. So you can see that gash mark is now tucked away in here, and we are somewhat flush with where these little mounting blocks line up for the bolts that'll come through the front side of the flex plate that I was showing you guys before that we lined up. So now it is totally seated, and you can see how I had to kind of work it a little bit back and forth, just finding the home. And so you'll notice when it's in here like this, obviously the transmission is going to be bolted into the backside of the bell housing of the engine. So they're static. The engine and the transmission aren't moving. The housing and the transmission aren't moving from each other. And then these bolts that go through the flex plate, that flex plate is called that because, like I said, it will flex in and out a little bit depending on how much torque you're putting out, how much you're getting on the car or not. And so it allows this torque converter to actually do a little bit of this. That's why it's got that play there on the input shaft going into the transmission where the snout goes over it. So they call it a flex plate like that because it will move just a little bit. But there it is, guys. We're seated, fully installed. Now we can get this thing rolled underneath the car and heave her up. Let's see how our hardware cleaned up. So these are all the pieces that we're going to need to put everything back together. And here's a torque converter bolt, for example. Looks pretty good. I'll dry it up, hit it with the wire wheel really quick, and I think we should be pretty good on all this hardware. Because I just don't want to put anything back with gunk and grease on threads and risk stripping stuff out. You always want to do things back nicer than they. Okay, cleaned up. You guys can hang out with me. My Uncle Joe gave me this cart from, I think, the post office, and it's a super handy transmission and parts cart and wheeler thing. So from here, now I'm going to muscle it down onto the ground, not scratch the bottom of my shiny new transmission pan, and then get this onto floor jack with the wood underneath it so it can kind of hold the whole pan, lift it up into position, mount it back onto the backside of the engine, and should be good to go. And one other thing to be careful about is if I tilt this thing too far forward, the torque converter could fall out and get messed up. So I'm just going to keep my hand on it, make sure that nothing happens to the torque converter as I try and maneuver this thing onto the ground. So now we're pretty heavy. So are all those days in the gym coming handy? Only slightly scraped up my shin, but we'll survive. Most importantly, we're on the ground. In the safe zone. Not gonna scratch my new pan. Right, gotta walk that one off. That hurt. Scraped my arm up pretty good, and my shin. But hey, protected the pan from scratching. That's what matters. So let's continue maneuvering here. might hear the exhaust this time. Last time we scraped on it, but I jacked the car up a little bit more. So let's see if we're gonna be good this time around. We're just barely up and gonna hit. Looks like we're just gonna clear it. Okay, and then once I get it under there though, I need to get it into that pocket there so I have enough room to get it up and get the jack underneath it. Yeah, this is a bit of a pain if that exhaust is out of the way. But that exhaust is not coming out of the way, so we're gonna have to figure this out. Okay, now I've got it kind of where I want it. Now I've got to get the jack underneath it, bring her up, and try not to scratch things up too much. I'm gonna put this on the jack as my transmission support plate, and should do us pretty good. I'm gonna try this with my low angle jack. This brings it down a couple inches. My low profile jack may be able to help make this a little bit easier. This is still gonna be a fight though. Oh, man. Trying to basically bench press this thing from the underside of the bell housing lip while using my thigh to push the jack underneath it. It's kind of working, except it's pushing transmission back. I'm grabbing under the ears right now. There we go. Okay, I've got the front lip of this torque converter on a piece of wood. Just okay. Getting the jack underneath it. Okay, this is actually working. We hang it up on it. Oh, you got broken fingers like that, motherfucker. Okay, I've got the transmission moving. Come on. Inching it forward. Oh, man. Oh, what a fight. Oh, we're getting it. Yeah, baby. Wiggle it. Oh, the crazy shit that I wind up doing. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh man, that was ridiculous. Okay guys, the transmission is on there though. Okay, wasting no time, let's start jacking this thing up. And as the back side of this jack is coming up, it's leveling out nicely, and also the jack's gonna bring it up and in towards the engine, which is perfect. Okay, let's get another camera angle. Close. Points certainly big. Trying not to hurt my hands or anything here. Looks like we're pretty well aligned so far. Just gonna put it over a little bit closer to me. Nearly got alignment down on my side. So we're really close right there. And yes, I am jacking with the feet. Sometimes you gotta do that. So we're gonna slip in here in just a second. Man, this is a hell of a thing. The transmission is leaning forward on me. Head up. Got this alignment dowel going in here. Inside. Nearly get a bolt started here. And I am just barely getting this first bolt going into the bell housing just for my safety here. This can prevent a major spill. Fuck these mosquitoes. It's too early for this. Not even May. Go away. Okay, let's get this couple more threads in. I will feel a little bit this passenger side. All right, we're a little bit low here on the passenger side. All right, and bring her up some more with the jack. And we've also got to get that snout of the torque converter into the back side of the crank. Let's gotta get this alignment dowel. There we go. Kind of ensuring our safety. And, oh man, sorry guys, I'm gassed. This is a lot of work. It's not easy. Okay, so we're a little high on the back side of the tail shaft now, but also I removed my jack that was in the way here supporting the back of the engine. So I'm gonna get that back here so this way we're not sagging too much, because once I release the back side of the transmission down, it's gonna pull all this weight. I don't want to overstress the motor mounts over here, so we'll get that set back up in place. But I think we're kind of near home here as far as getting the transmission aligned with the engine, because now we've got the two lower bell housing bolts going. So then we can work and get the torque converter lined up after now this. I've got this jack set up here on the back of the tail of the transmission, which has now unloaded the weight from the back side. So as I do the bell housing bolts, this is basically going to carry the weight of the back side of the engine and the transmission, and then I can get this jack out of the way, then roll that other jack underneath and support the oil pan, and then move this guy out of the way. So it's kind of a triangulation of 3 jacks. Oh, I made a mistake though. I forgot to get the dipstick tube pressed in while it was still on the ground, like on the jack, before I brought it up. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to fish this thing through here and get it actually pressed into where it needs to be in the transmission. So I may wind up having to bring the transmission back down, get this pressed in and bring it back up. Oh man, fingers crossed. Actually not as bad as I thought it was. I just kind of fished it from up top, and we can see coming down through this side here. I think I'll be able to get it in. It's just gonna be a matter of being able to press it back down into the transmission, which is sometimes a pain, but I think I can get it. Get her rotated. All right, now we can get this thing set into the transmission. So I'm just gonna have to go from up top, or maybe I can get it here. Just kind of pull down, get it pressed in, because we don't want this thing to be leaking. And then this little tab up here is gonna line up with that bolt hole. So that'll show me exactly how far down I've gotta get it. And then we can reroute this little modulator line and continue reconnecting our transmission cooler lines and the bell housing bolts. Yep, that sucked. I had to pull the transmission back down so this way I could get the dipstick tube inside its bore because it just would not go in. So I hit it with a little bit of RTV to also help glide it in and keep any extra leaking from happening. So now we're lined up. Now I can get this thing put back in. And honestly, it's not the worst thing because it was sitting a bit unbalanced on the jack, but now I've got it perfectly balanced. So now I can bring it up into position and it should be a little bit easier. Okay guys, we're back up into place. Just getting our first bolts here going on the bell housing. This is, as usual, been a bit of a process, but we are pretty much past the really hard stuff right now. That side is started. Now I'm just gonna lower the jack just a little bit here to get this other bolt here lined up. Okay, now we've really got that alignment dowel going into place there. Cool, you can see it pull the transmission forward. So now we can get this guy threaded. And at this point, we are pretty much safe. You get those two bottom bolts going and she's pretty much lined up and not gonna fall off. Get more bolts put in. Heck yeah. Got my rear jack set up so now I can get this guy out of the way. A little more room to work here. All right, we are getting final tightening on these bell housing bolts. And it's a little after midnight, but you know what? We're out here doing it. Get the job done, right? Got the modulator line connected, all the bell housing bolts are tight, and now we're going to get the cooler lines reconnected. It's very satisfying and relaxing to put things back together when they're fresh, clean, repainted. This is just enjoyable now. I was definitely sucking earlier when I was trying to wrestle this thing up in here, but now that it's all snug and secure, I'm feeling pretty comfortable, and this is enjoyable work. All right guys, we're on the home stretch of this job. We've got both the cooler lines reconnected, the modulator is hooked up. Now we've got to connect the torque converter to the flex plate. We discussed this earlier in the video, and you guys remember seeing that this actually will line up in any position, but like I had noted, once again, if this was, say, a 4-bolt pattern or something different where they were a little offset, I would have had marked a little A on this side and an A on that side and a B here, or 1, 1, 2, 2. Just create some system so you can get it to line up nicely and you won't have to actually rotate it around and then find that you're 1 bolt off, undo them, and then redo it all. In my case though, we line up nicely, so these torque converter bolts are pretty shallow, and I'm actually going to put some red Loctite on these before I tighten them down. And once again, to point out, the torque converter is completely seated against the transmission input shaft right now, but you'll see as I draw it closer, pulling it towards the flex plate, there's that little bit of gap where it can kind of move back and forth now, as these cut marks in the flex plate allow this setup here to kind of just move a little bit here with thrust and hard accelerations and movement like that. Okay, we got thread locker on these bolts. Now we are good to go ahead and get them installed. So we're gonna go start with this guy since it is the most accessible. You can see as I tighten it in, it's just going to draw the torque converter ever so closely against the flex plate. Like that. Nice and snug now. Sweet. This guy going too. Okay, second bolt going in. see as we start tightening, we're able to spin around the engine. Okay, we've got that one in, the first one is in, and now here's the last one. Succeeded in our evaluation of them being symmetrical and just lining up in any orientation that we could find. So, kick ass. I'm stumbling on my words, guys, because it's like 1 a.m. Long day, but we get the job done. Got a full moon tonight. What a night it's been out here. We're almost done, guys. Okay, guys, and we're gonna put the speedo cable in. It's got a little squared keyway here on the speedo gear going inside the transmission, and it's kind of squared going through the actual speedo cable. We'll mate these guys up, and that will tie this off right here. Hell yeah. Swapping out jacks, so now this one can come out of the way and make room so we can get the cross member put back in. Now that jack is holding up the weight of the back of the engine slash transmission. So we gotta get this gross old behemoth put back into place, and I really wish I could have pulled this thing out, painted it, but you know what? The rest of the car is not perfect, like I said. All right, I've got this thing maneuvered back into where it needs to be. We've got the transmission just floating right above it, so I can lower the jack and it can seat back down. This is the e-brake cable hook up here, so we'll just get everything hooked back up when it's done, but we can just put these bolts in right now and call this a night. And you know what, we're gonna start with this one because this was our troublemaker earlier, and you know what, we want to see redemption. Hell yeah. Got the passenger side going here, and we cannot forget our little shims that we painted. So I'm gonna slip these in from over top, and again, it doesn't totally make sense to me. I don't know if this was done from the factory. Obviously this winds up setting everything a little bit in towards the driver's side, but maybe it was meant to be that way. I don't know. This is the way that it worked when I've been driving the car for the last 17 years. So I'm gonna put it back together just that way because we know it worked. There used to be 5 in here, but I don't know if I'm gonna get all 5 back in here. It's looking tight even with 2. See if we can't get a 3rd one in there. I don't know. I thought tightening up here on the driver's side might pull it in towards that end and give us more space, but it didn't. We're snug here with 2 shims. We used to have 5. I don't really know, but you know what? If it's tight, it's tight. If there's no room, I'm good with it. Okay, we're gonna release the jack and let the transmission completely sit back down on the cross member. Okay, you can hear it settled into place. We can go ahead and get it secured. The jack can leave. And we're tightening down the transmission mount to the cross member. Yeehaw, guys. It's 2:20 in the morning. I think this is what I'm gonna freaking call it. And tomorrow we'll get the drive shaft in, degrease a little bit, speedo cable, shift linkage, a couple other little things, grease that up, and yeah, take it for a test drive. But it's been a long night, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Another exciting note here for the Wildcat. New shoes have arrived, or I should say, I guess, new soles for the shoes. It's been 17 years since I've got new rubber for that car, but we finally got a new pair of, or I should say, a whole new set here of tires. They're 225 70R15, same size that was on there. These I got for, I think, $104 each tire. So honestly, not a bad deal. They're 700, I think, rated on the tread wear with like an AA or an AB. So weather and traction pretty good tire, well rated. And you know, I was gonna go with Cooper Cobras or maybe be a Goodrich like I was on there, but just wanted to keep it a little bit more budget friendly, and these I think will do really good. These bad boys, my Chupacabras, have been on the car since 2007, and they have seen better days. They've actually only got about 20,000 miles on them, so there's still a lot of tread, but they're probably no longer safe. Probably hasn't been safe for the last few years, but you know what? It's just been me driving, and now I'm actually gonna put Harley in there with Alex, so make it safe for the fam. This isn't Mopar madness. I do not know what it is. All right, guys, let's finish up this job. Drive shaft is about to go in. We'll get the switch pitch wiring put onto the transmission and carburetor, and after that, we'll do a quick oil change. We'll put this thing in gear right here on the jack stand, see how it does, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that new transmission is kicking butt. But here we are in the home stretch. For the oil change, it'll be a Wix 51258. Use some 10W30, and then I always add some Zinc Plus in there from Lucas Oil. It's got a flat tappet cam for a lot of our classic muscle car engines, because modern oils don't have that in there, so a little extra protection. So we'll get this oil change real quick, and then we'll do drive. Like this 3/4 inch nut and 1/2 inch bolt setup that Buick did here. Kind of makes for a nice little drain situation. This oil hasn't been changed in 1.5 years, but it's got maybe 30,000 miles on it at the most, so it's still looking pretty translucent. Hard for you guys to see. Yeah, it's still pretty damn clean, but nonetheless, we'll change it out. Nice and clean. Heck yeah. That's what we like. Let this drain out. We'll get onto the drive shaft. Oil's finished draining. Plug her back up. And when I tighten this, I go snug. I don't go ultra tight. Go tighter, it'll actually start turning that 3/4 inch. Right about there. Feels good. Then I always just wipe everything off, so this way I know that it's clean for one, but two, if it were to start leaking somehow, then I could tell, because I knew that I left this dry. The other absolute beauty about this car and oil changes is the oil filter is one of the most accessible of any car I've ever worked on. There's nothing in the way of it. Usually when you drain your oil, it lands on like the K-member and then it gets everything all coated on a Mopar, for example, or it'll have steering, or there will be stuff in a modern car with a block-off plate. Here, it's literally a straight shot with nothing underneath it. You can just twist this guy off, maybe by hand. If not, no, I'll have to get a wrench. Even though I tighten this hand tight, after a year of being on there, the gasket will kind of get a little sticky, so just a little help from the wrench, and she's spinning off. Perfect. And again, I love the configuration because the way it's angled perfectly down like that, there's nowhere for it to even be leaking. So let's see what this oil looks like coming out. Clean, nice. Love it. Actually, I did this back in November of 2022, so I'm a little bad there. It's been a hot minute. However, 80,100 miles when I did this, so I think we're not much beyond that. We'll go take a look on the odometer. This is hilarious. We're at 80,654, so I've put 554 miles on this car in 1.5 years, and that just shows you guys how little I wind up driving it sometimes, but especially with it being down since November of last year, a year after that oil change, that transmission issue. So it's really had very minimal miles so far. Alex did just bring up a good point though, that as you guys see, even though it's been 500 miles on this oil, being in there 1.5 years, over time, contaminants build up in the oil, you get moisture in the crankcase, the engine sits here, develops a little bit of moisture inside, even underneath the valve covers in the crankcase, and when you start it up, even those minimal times throughout the year, it winds up having contamination in the oil, so you just want to flush it out. So even though it's been 500 miles, it was definitely time to go. marked it off here on my tracker, oil change, and then I'll also always put it on the oil filter itself. So this way I know exactly when I did this last. Noted. And I always kiss the oil filter gaskets together to transfer some oil onto them. My Uncle Joe taught me this many years ago when I first learned how to work on cars. So this way that gasket is nice and lubricated, so when it goes onto there, as you saw when I take it off next year, it's not impossible to get off, because if this goes on dry, it could really kind of lock itself onto there. And always also take note and make sure the gasket from the old filter comes off, because I had it happen once on this car where that gasket stayed there on the oil filter housing, and then I went and put on a new one, and then I had double gaskets which did not seal under pressure, started the car up in the driveway, and it started gushing out oil everywhere, and I thought I ruined something. It was a simple fix, but still a big lesson learned there, so something to always keep an eye out for. And thread her back on. Sweet. Get it to hand tight. Just like that. And I always love when it stops the label on the outside so I could read my mileage when I come here and check on it next year. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it's time to do this. Just pre-filling it as well. I used to not do this. A lot of people get really upset when you don't do this. On a orientation like this one, it's super easy to do, but some cars, when they go in horizontal, it's just gonna pour out. But honestly, this will fill up so fast by the time you get your car started. I don't think it's much of an issue at all, but because of the orientation of this guy going nice and vertical, I don't mind pre-filling it for you. Plus hitting a little precision pour here for you guys. Boom. I'll even add a couple drops of the special sauce in there just to send some of that good zinc around the engine too on first start. So I'm gonna try the old classic precision pour for you guys. I'm not even gonna put a towel around it, and I am filming with the other hand. Here we go. We're about 10 inches above. Do we get this? Precision pour for you guys. I know a lot of people really bust on me for doing it, but I freaking love it. I have many funnels in my drawer, but there's nothing funner than the precision pour. Can't forget to mix in some special sauce. I like to do about a third of a bottle. Let's check where we're at so far. So it looks like we're about just above the 1 on the add 1 quart wording there, so got about another quart and a half to go. Precision pour part 2. It's always easier once you get the level down in the bottle. Get a little closer. Not sure if you guys can hear, but it's always a nice sound when you hear the oil kind of trickling down the bottom into the oil pan. Boom. Nice. Okay, let's check our level once again. Should be nearly topped off at this point. It looks like we're actually just above the little operating range, about a 1/16 of an inch above it. So you guys can see a little better here on the back side. A little bit more and we'll be there. This completes our oil change for now. We can continue on with the job. Boom. Cleaning up these contacts here for the switch pitch connector. This way we're definitely getting good clean contact for the wiring. While we're up here, I'm gonna reattach the switch pitch wire. Should behave itself. There we go. Send it back down towards the transmission. There we are, stuff aren't you? Okay, right here, we can reconnect. Okay, after checking back my records, it looks like it's just the way it's kind of sitting right now, which is kind of convenient. So yellow on bottom, black on top. But that's why I like to film and document everything, because you never know when you're gonna need to look back. Okay, reattached. Nice. Make sure we route this good going down. Boom. There we go. Sweet. And now here to the underside. I think I also might have not updated you guys before. I greased this up here for the shift linkage, and I reattached it with some new wiring. And according to my pictures, the orientation for this one would be yellow wire down, which is just the way it's landing right now. But also it's kind of keyed that way with it having one vertical and one horizontal. So, yep, that's gonna be it right there. And like this. And we can get it reattached. Sweet. Okay, that's good on there. We don't want this wire to get hung up on our shift linkage, so I'll make sure that I tie it in with some wire holder up there, kind of keep it out of the way. As a matter of fact, this is a wire holder tab right here. So that's what that's supposed to do. Beautiful. And what a beautiful night it is. Just look at this sunset. I know I always get cheesy with you guys about this stuff, but seriously, when I'm out here in the driveway, having just a fun time putting my cars back together, working on stuff, breaking knuckles, it's just a good old time. And these are the nights that I just really enjoy doing what I do here. Okay, time to put this drive shaft back in. I just cleaned off the yoke here, so this way there was no tape residue left on it from when I had taped it off. Masked it to paint. So now I'm gonna just get this under here without scratching it up too bad. So I'm getting this masking tape off the backside too. These pop off from time to time, and when you put them back on, sometimes they'll be kind of feeling a little bit of pressure. Make sure that you don't mess up these little needle bearings on the inside, because they could fall out and then it's almost impossible to get them back right in. So this is a careful little operation when they do pop off. Do not drop it, because then these little needle bearings, like I said, they'll fall out and it'll be a whole mess. Okay, drive shaft. Let's get you back home. Do it into the transmission first. And pretty sure it's non-keyed. Slip yoke over the tail shaft, just like that. Nice. Okay, and then we can get our U-joints put back in. Just need to push her in a little bit more. Okay. Then these guys will go right back in here. That one's trying to pop out. There we go. Sweet. Pretty much seated there. And now we'll get our center bearing put back in and we'll be good. Nice. And again, this is our fitment right here. Nice and snug. Rear U-joint going into the rear yoke to the rear axle. So now it's sitting okay, kind of straddled above the exhaust pipes. We'll get this these set of U-bolts here tightened up. Washer and nut. Okay, we'll get these tightened up here in a sec, but at least we know now the end of the drive shaft can't pop out. Okay, and now I'm just getting these guys realigned. Boom. Drive shaft is nice and pushed into the transmission. Love it. Let's just get these nuts on here. Okay, getting these snugged up. Heck yeah. Now I've got these U-bolts snugged up as well, so these are good to go. Heck yeah. Yep. All right, guys, drive shaft is connected. We are fully bolted in all the way around, and she's sitting right there in the transmission. So last thing to do here, tightened up this drain plug so this way we don't get any leak out, and I almost forgot about that. And now we just need to fill this transmission, and we can start the engine, run through, check our level again from our oil change, and then check our level here. And we can run it right here on the jack stands and make sure we're shifting all 3 gears. And once we know it's good, I'll put the inspection cover back on, which will cover up the torque converter there and the flex plate. And that's what these last 2 bolts will be for. Okay guys, last step. This should be completely dry right now because this transmission has not been filled yet. And we are about to do that right now. Let's fill it up. And I am going to use a funnel this time because that's a really hard one to do the precision pour on. If anyone can do that one, I give you a lot of credit. This goofy big old funnel I got from my engine builder from the 71 Plum Crazy Charger I did, and he forgot it with the car, so it's always kind of stayed with me, and it's actually really perfect for these kind of situations. So let's get this thing filled up. Got the rest of this bottle of ATF, and then there's some more as well. I think there's probably about 2 quarts in here right now. Heck yeah. Oh, that sucks. That's ATF4. That goes in 727s and Mopar stuff. I grabbed the wrong bottle, but luckily we can drain this out because right now that should have just went straight into the transmission and went into the pan. So good thing I installed that new pan with that plug so I could do exactly this. That really sucks, but again, I'm really, really glad that I installed this new pan with this drain plug and I did not do this for the camera. This is kind of an annoying mistake. I'm gonna see if I can't catch all of this ATF here in this bottle because that was like $20–30 worth of fluid, but I don't know. Let's see what happens here. Call this one the precision catch or precision land. Nice. Okay, it looks to me like this fluid might still be pretty clean because obviously all it did was just pass inside of a freshly rebuilt transmission. So I'm gonna save this for Hefty's top offs. I don't think this would have really hurt anything too bad, but they do have different friction modifiers and different chemical makeups obviously between ATF4 and Dexmerc. That's why there's a difference in the naming convention and, you know, the whole branding. So there's a reason why it's different, but from its functional standpoint, it's similar. So any drops that are left over in here from this mistake shouldn't hurt anything. It's gonna nearly be all flushed out with the Dexmerc, and I'll actually maybe leave this open, go pump a little Dexmerc through it and let that flush out the rest of this, and then we can really be good and safe. Like I said, this is the right stuff, Dexmerc. Let's do a little flush. We'll put a little bit in to the top here, and we'll go catch this down on the bottom. Already coming out, sweet. Okay, perfect. All right, think we saved it, guys. Like I said, not a huge mistake. Now, if I had put like motor oil in there or something, that would have been a really bad night, but luckily I'm not that bad. So a little lesson learned in being a little bit more careful of what I'm doing, because when I went in the garage, I had 3 bottles of transmission fluid because I was just doing transmission stuff on Hefty, if you guys saw in a recent video on that 727. So I failed in being observant, but nonetheless, I think we saved it. Okay, collision averted. For any of you that are OCD like me, I know that would have bothered you, so here you are seeing the wipe off. Okay. Okay. Collision averted. Don't do that. That was not good, but I think we saved it. Let's continue back with the proper transmission. There's probably about 2, maybe 2.5 quarts that just went in. We've already got the torque converter filled from earlier in the video. So let's continue filling here. And we can crank it up and check our level. Okay, there's probably about 1 quart left in there. And the transmission altogether between the torque converter and what's in the pan. Let's see if we're reading on the dipstick yet. And we're reading right about the P, or add 1 pint. So add a little bit more, and then once we get this thing started up, get it into neutral, and that's when you can actually get your full reading. So for those of you that don't know that, you don't read your transmission dipstick in park or driving in idle. You actually need to have the car running and put it into neutral, and that will give you your full accurate reading on that. Because if you do it in any other format, it's not going to be totally accurate. Good if you do it in park while idling, or if you do it in gear, for example. Obviously it's going to change the fluid level in there, so you're meant to read your dipstick with the engine running in neutral. So right here though, in park, it'll still give you a close reading, but it won't be completely accurate until, like I said, running up to 10 in neutral. So let's get a little bit more in there, and then we can get our first crank up. Hey guys, it's time to get this thing cranked up. Reconnecting the battery. Okay, let's do it. Check our fluid levels. Seeing a little transmission fluid right there. Right there along the gasket too. So might need to tighten up these bolts a little bit. Like you can see here, torque converter spinning. Everything sounds good right now. And I'm just gonna let this all get up to temp. Let the engine get up to temperature, let the transmission get up to temperature, and then I can actually put it in gear and we can watch the wheels rotate. And that leak we're seeing is just a little bit right here caught along this gasket, but some did drip down when I was filling it up. So this might have actually just come from up top. So I'm gonna try and get this out right now, spray this with a little carb cleaner, and then we'll crank it back up again and make sure that this doesn't turn red and juicy again. So I think we're good because I checked the torque on these and they felt fine. And while it's off, since we got the engine running for the first time after doing this oil change, checking my dipstick here, and it looks like we're actually just above operating, kind of right on that little hash mark there. So I'm actually gonna just drain a tiny little bit out once we go back underneath the car, and then we're good on the oil. And I just let a little bit of oil out here, making a proper mess in my hand. Oh well. We don't want to be overfilled on the oil because that can just create extra parasitic drag on the crankshaft and hurt performance. And though this isn't a high performance engine, still no reason to overfill it. Okay, let's clean up this lip on this gasket. Okay, so now we can really tell if this thing starts leaking again, if there's a problem here with the way that this pan gasket is sealing, or if that was just, like I thought, a little bit of spill that came down from when we filled it up. Okay, let's crank it up again. Now let's check for further leaking. Hopefully there is none. Good now. Check fluid level. We're in neutral now. Okay, we're not even on the dipstick. We're too low. Let's turn it off. I think we might be SOL tonight, guys, because this is the last of the Dex Merc I've got. and it's almost midnight, parts stores are closed. I might have flopped here and not got enough. Thought when I researched online it was going to be about 7 quarts to do all this, but I think I was pretty short. Yeah, we're just barely on the dipstick. Typical. Way to go. Well, I guess that's kind of a flop. We have to pause here tonight, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow when I go get some more Dexmerc from the store, because I screwed up once again. Didn't get enough. So, sorry guys. I'll see you tomorrow. I wasn't seeing any leaking or anything happening, so I want to end off the night at least on a positive note with this, making it look all complete. And after that just ran, I was still seeing a little bit of wetness right here along this gasket, so cinched them up a little bit more, but you don't want to over tighten them because you can hurt the gasket. And I also took this wooden block with a hammer and lightly tapped along this flange just to see if that wouldn't help seat it a little bit more, because I just don't want any leaking going on with my brand new rebuilt transmission. This thing should not leak because it's new, right? So we'll make sure that's good, but yeah. Gonna have to catch you guys in the morning when I get some more transmission. All right guys, we're out here on the next day, and I gotta say, as frustrating as it can be getting to a night like that where you think you're done, you think it's gonna be fine, and all of a sudden you find one more problem, I'm kind of glad that we're taking today to do a little bit more, because like we saw, that transmission pan gasket is leaking. I'm actually gonna drain it out, drop that fluid, drop the pan, and go get a more high quality gasket from local parts store, because that one right there is too thin. It's kind of old, thin, kind of papery. It's garbage. We need a nice rubber with steel center gasket. So we're going to replace that. We're also going to pop off our wheel and tire combination, go take those to Les Schwab around here, our local tire shop, get new tires put on those. And then these tires are actually from Hefty. For those of you who have followed me long enough, these were the original tires and wheels that came on the car. Way too big for that car. These things are 235 75 R15s. They no longer hold air. The other two that I have a set of 4 of these hold air. So I'm going to take 2 of those, which still hold air, have those mounted on here. So this way I can use these for fun, eat around tires, and you know, when I'm working on project cars or something like that. So what do you think, Elliot? I'm going to get these new tires, put on these wheels, and it's going to be looking really good. Hey guys, NASCAR pit stop. Not off to a great start. These wheels haven't been on. How'd I do? Think Hendrick Motorsports would hire me? I wouldn't hire me either. That being said though, there are a few things cooler than a set of Krager SS's on the old school car, so I love these wheels. Sweet. Here's another quick comparison of the tires next to each other. You can just tell it's been better days for these tires, but there's still a decent amount of tread left, like I said. But these new ones, I'm sure, are going to ride so much nicer. So I'm really looking forward to this. Hell yeah. Let's also admire for a second how absolutely massive these rear brakes are, and even the fronts. These are 14-inch brake drums. Just for comparison, like, I've got some big hands, but these are some big brakes. And then even up here at the front, Buick did these really cool aluminum finned brake drums, and these ones I think are 12 inches if I'm not mistaken, or maybe they're 13s. I'd have to measure it obviously from the inner diameter of the surfaces from the backside, but just to give you a quick look from the front, I think they're 13s. So there's a huge amount of stopping power in these drums. The only weak point about this setup, it's got a single master cylinder. So eventually I was going to swap in a dual, but then put disc brakes up here. But part of me is reluctant to do that because this is a really cool original setup, and the early hot rodders used to take these and put these on like 32 Fords and do other cool stuff with it, because you've got these really cool fins, and again, they're aluminum. They're really kind of neat. So just a really massive brake setup on this Buick. Additionally, with a lower control arm, upper control arm is basically a factory 4-link with coil springs for the rear, which is pretty unique. A lot of these cars in that era had leaf springs back here, so pretty well engineered with a full frame, full box chassis. Pretty cool. All right, that concludes our load up, and I'm going to also ask the tire shop to mount it with the yellow dot side out. There's not a white wall or letter side on these, but they do have these little barcodes, which I don't like, so we'll have them mount this to the inside. And then, like I said, 2 of those tires off the old wheels, we'll go replace those tires. Those 2 tires, which are dead, will get thrown out. We'll have 2 spare Cooper Cobras to throw on other roll around wheels someday. Then these 4 new tires to go on my OG Krager SS's. Same thing here, I labeled each wheel and gave them the specific instructions on what to do, taking off each tire, swapping some onto different wheels. This mofo thinks he's gonna homestead on the Wildcat. Hell no. Not in this house, buddy. Be gone! Guys, the saga of the Wildcat transmission reinstall continues because they didn't have the transmission pan gasket locally that I thought they did. But that's okay, because I want to have a Moroso one anyway. So just like the one that's on Hefty, it's a really good gasket. It's kind of spongy. It's got a steel core. It really seals a lot better than what was on there. And plus, we've got the wheels and tires now at the tire shop. We'll just wait until tomorrow, get all that stuff back, and then we can actually get this all reinstalled and finally get this car on the ground, go for a test drive, and show you guys exactly how it's performing. And again, for example, you can see the nice blue Moroso gasket here on the 727 for Hefty. So just the same type there. You don't need to use any RTV with it. It just seals super good. And that's the same kind of quality that I want for the Wildcat. So I should. Here comes Mopar Mama with the hot delivery. She's got a whole back full of fun new tires. I'm so excited to get these new wheels and tires on the Wildcat and see how it rides. Woo-wee! Heck yeah. And thanks to the mysteries of Amazon, this thing got here within 1 day. So that is freaking cool, because this is exactly what I originally wanted, and I should have just ordered it knowing so. This will be a great gasket, because like I said, the one that's on Hefty over there does so good sealing, and you don't have to actually use any RTV or sealant, so this is going to be perfect. Look at that. They even sent some cool Moroso stickers. That's how you know you buy some good quality stuff, when they send you cool toolbox stickers. So like I said, I think this thing was like 40 bucks. Yeah, sure, it's $30 more than a Fel Pro or the usual type of gasket, but like I said, look at how nice and thick this thing is. It's got a steel core. You don't need to use any RTV on it. I'm not sponsored by Moroso. I'd love to be, by the way, but just telling you guys, just from my own experience, not an ad here. These are the way to go. These gaskets rock. My only regret in doing this, I forgot the Cooper Cobras had white wall or white letters on the inside, so I would have probably asked them to do the white letters out on these knockoff centerline wheels I've got, because that would look kind of cool. But other than that, it looks like they did exactly what I asked them to do. The yellow dot side out, they're mounted, balanced, looks like they did. They also put nice chrome new tire stems on there instead of the rubber ones that used to be on there, so that looks kind of cool. So yeah, I am very pleased with this. We'll get these cleaned up a little bit. Gonna hit these wheels. This one's not too bad, but with some, if you take some water or soda and tinfoil, you can kind of rub chrome and get rid of a lot of the rust that's showing. So I'll do that on one of the other wheels and I'll show you guys. All right guys, again, in summary, new tires are mounted to the Krager SS's. Like I said, a little bit of rust here on this wheel, on this little inner lip, and this one more so than those two. We'll hit that and clean that up. Had them put 2 of these older Cooper Cobras that were on there on these cool centerline wheels, which had dead tires. And then we just got some extra ones here that I could throw on some other fun wheels. So super stoked this all happened. All right guys, as promised, I'm gonna clean up a little bit of the chrome pitting on these wheels. Obviously this isn't gonna completely fix the problem. The pitting and the little rust that's coming through is gonna eventually come back. But all those little spots is going to get instantly rubbed away with tin foil and just water. And I know there's people who use Coca-Cola, they use other stuff, plenty of options. Tinfoil and water also works great, and guess what? You don't have a sticky mess on your wheels after, so that's what I do. Also, as you guys saw, we've got that new Moroso gasket. This one here sucks, so we're gonna get rid of it. All that needs to happen here, luckily, is just pop off this drain plug, and once again, I'm so glad I got this transmission pan. It's already paid off twice. And once I drain this out, pretty simple, just pop off all the bolts around it, lower the pan. It doesn't look like they did any RTV on this gasket, so it'll be super easy to just pop that thing off, and then we can put the new one on it, reinstall the pan, fill it back up, boom, put the car on the ground, let's test drive it. Get the wheel wet. Wet the foil a little bit. Just create a nice little shape like this that I can kind of keep my hand on, and here we go. As promised, it's not going to be perfect, but it will get rid of about 60 to 75% of the surface rust you're seeing, which is honestly pretty damn cool. You can even use it to just kind of clean up areas that aren't rusty, but just have gotten a little bit of haze on them just from being on the car out in the weather over the years. And I just kind of did this right half of the wheel. Let's give a quick spray off. I mean, I can definitely see down in this bottom corner how it's way cleaner as compared to over that way. Not gonna be perfect, but so much better. And here it is after that little bit of work. Really not much time invested. Definitely shinier than it was. Looks a lot better, so I am pleased. That was the worst wheel of the 4 too, so we'll get these other 3 and get back over to the transmission. All right, that's it. Wheels are cleaned up. So much better than it was. Stoked. All right, we finished draining. I'm gonna plug her back up, and now I can drop the pan. It's actually only about this full right now, so it really didn't have that much to come out because it probably filled up the torque converter first and maybe other cooler lines and other spaces that were not filled, so there's not going to be that much that had come out. Okay, let's pull it down. And this is the last bolt coming off. Now we can release the pan down. Boom. And for those of you that have never seen the underside of a Super Turbine 400, there you go. Yeah, it looks to me like this gasket, yeah, garbage. But I'm glad they did not silicone it at the same time. That would have made this 12 times longer of a job. So I'm gonna say goodbye to this little skinny piece of junk, replace it with that nice Moroso gasket. You can see the difference in thickness between this garbage gasket that I had on there versus this nice, beautiful Moroso. Like I said, steel core, rubberized, clean this off with carb cleaner. You don't need to use any RTV, and you can take this pan on and off and reuse this gasket. These are the way to go. Go ahead and here's part number. If you have a TH400 or a Super Turbine 400 like me, this is gonna fit the same configuration. Wipe down with some carb cleaner. This way you don't have any transmission fluid on there, making it all juicy, just nice and clean and dry. Nice and dry over here too. And I'm just being surgically clean and getting anything out of the bottom of this pan. There's a couple little specks of stuff. Hopefully that was just leftover crap that was in maybe the cooler lines or something. And you know, we'll have new fluid going in, so actually that helps to kind of flush out any little stuff that was down there anyway, because any little speck of anything, such as this right here, could wind up going into the wrong passage and screwing up an automatic transmission. They're pretty sensitive, so making sure it's nice and clean. Okay, gasket going on. And all of our bolt holes align, so that is a good sign. Like I said, Super Turbine 400 and TH400 look exactly the same. It's just got the switch pitch converter in my Super Turbine 400. But as far as the pan configuration goes, it's exactly the same. So this stuff will all interchange. And you can feel it's nice and stuck on there, even without putting any RTV. It's gonna make a really nice seal. So now we'll go ahead and just clean up a little bit of that flange on the transmission side and get it around there. Other thing to note too, this filter is gonna look like it's loose. This bolt is all the way tight, but this is the way it's designed to be. So if you ever take one of these apart and you're like, oh crap, am I missing a O-ring or a washer here? Nope, that's the way that it's supposed to be. And I'm just drying up this mounting flange here on the transmission as well. Just like I said, we don't want it to have any sort of transmission fluid. So this way that gasket creates its own kind of nice stickiness and will just hold on tight. We're gonna get the pan remated here with the transmission. Sweet. Catch. Just get these a little bit snug right now, and then I'll get a torque on them when it's all the way on. Can I get a hell yeah? This is what we're talking about, guys. New gasket. This is the shit right here. You can see as I tighten this down, it's just barely hand tight. Like, I forget the exact torque rating, but I usually just go just enough. You're not trying to mash that gasket. You're not trying to make it push out and squeeze out. Just nice and tight. And then you can kind of go back and re-torque it, recheck it after it's been up to operating temp. But this is really just using just whatever little torque is in my wrist right now. Just barely giving it a little something. All right, we're all tightened up. Let's go refill it. Hey, big girl. Okay, let's get you refilled. Pull this dipstick. Get some new fluid. Wish me luck, hope I got enough. I just put that whole gallon in there and I'm still barely seeing it on the dipstick, so I'm gonna take this remaining amount that we had drained out and I'm gonna filter it on the way in just to make sure it doesn't introduce any contaminants going in. Looks like it might have caught a couple little pieces, so I'm glad that we did that. This is where we are on the dipstick right now. It's at add 1 pint, and I am short, so I'm gonna have to run back to the store again. This is so frustrating. I forgot that we're not running, so maybe it'll actually come up in the level. So let's actually get the car going and see in neutral. Sunset we've got here again. Gotta love it. The old cat purring over here. More good news, we are not leaking. Pan gasket work, guys. Hell yeah. That is what I'm talking about. Looks good over here on this side too. Beauty. I knew it. I knew we just needed to get the right gasket. This Moroso rocks. Okay, let's go ahead and put it in reverse, see what happens. Okay, we are moving. Nice. And over here to neutral now. And that clinking was just my spacers there. Oh man, we're not even on the dipstick. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off. Just barely on there. I need to run to the store. I went to the store and they didn't have any Dex Merc, so unfortunately I had to wait till the next day once again to finish it. One last thing I have to do to get these wheels mounted, I have to ask the tire shop not to use the knock-on lead ones, so these will get really close on this inner lip right here up against the back side of this backing plate here for the brakes. You need to clearance this a little bit all the way around, and then this won't actually hit when it's going around. Okay guys, and here you can see what I was talking about. This backing plate here was actually getting really close to this inner lip of the wheel. Now we've cleaned it up and we won't be hitting. All right guys, I successfully serviced the back side of this backing plate so we're not hitting on this rear part of the wheel. Now we can go and get it remounted. All right, first wheel is on the car. Once again, for demonstration, you can see that lead weight right there. And as we come around, we've got a nice 1/8 inch. Now we just need to go get to the other side. Because again, these Krager wheels were not original to this car and weren't designed to meet exactly the way they do, but nonetheless, we make it work. I thought this was kind of fun to share. Look at this 58-year-old piece of welding slag left over from the welding wire they used when they were welding up the seams on this original chassis. That is some thick wire right there. And that thing's been on the car for that long. Looks like we're still pretty good on these. Plenty of meat on the shoes. I did these, I think, a 1.5 years ago, so maybe 1,000 miles at the most on them. Okay, I hit that lip with a little bit of paint so it doesn't rust, and the wheel can go on now. And over here on the passenger side, we are clear. Nice. No contact. Alrighty. Love it. Now these front two are super easy. They don't require any clearancing. Just go right on up. Okay. Final piece of the puzzle. I was able to find a little bit more Dexmerk locally. I couldn't believe the other night I tried to go get some and the Walmart was all sold out. So different brand, Castrol versus Valvoline, but still the same stuff. Should be just fine, and we can get this thing topped off and finally on the ground. And our last reading was just at the add 1 pint. It's going to show a little bit higher when you shut the car off. Remember, you always check this with the engine running, up to temp, in neutral. So it's going to show a higher reading when it's actually just parked right now, turned off. And one other tech tip too, I don't love supporting Walmart, but I gotta say, their fluids are so much cheaper there. If you were to get this from like O'Reilly's, Napa, AutoZone, this was like $35. This is 20 bucks over at Walmart. So oil, transmission fluid, all sorts of automotive fluids, I always go to Walmart and get the stuff because honestly, you just can't beat that much savings. It's almost near half. Sweet. First hit. Just checked it. We were still pretty low, so I added about 1.5 quarts. Now we'll see where we're at. And we just added some more. Yep, now you can see we're actually covering the double D's there on add. So that's me looking like, and you can see that little break right there that coincides with it is rotated around. Just about the D. So we've got to add another pint. Being that I added that deeper new pan to this thing, a larger food capacity, so that makes up for why we're about 11 quarts right now. Okay, let's get us one last reading. See what we got. Boom. We are just above the full line. See that right there, just under the edge. Okay, so we'll just let a tiny bit out, but that's it, guys. She's full. We can now hit the road. You can also see when we pop it into gear. Here we are moving. Brakes. And we're moving. Nice. At the first, second, and then drive. Okay, we're ready for the road. Okay, now make sure you got your foot on the brake good, because if you're not, you'll bark it there going into park. Sweet. Time to hit the ground for a test drive. Okay, I just checked my tire pressures all around. We're good. Wheels are tightened up. Lugs are tight. Let's get around the ground. First time in like 2 weeks. This has been a long job. Lots of little issues here and there, little fights, but we did it, guys. Fingers crossed this test drive goes good. Pro tip, if you want to save your ears when you let these jack stands down, hold the top and release instead of just letting it slam down and make you deaf. Okay, coming down for the front end. Nice and slow, let the jack walk back towards us. Just still got rear jack stands. Sweet. An old school suspension squat. He's looking good. Okay, let's get the rear. Hear that train in the distance? My father worked for the railroad for 29 years. He found this car with me. Whenever I hear a distant train, I always think of him. What's up, Daddy-o? Okay, coming down. Let's do it. Sweet. And the car is in park, not rolling. We know that park is engaging in the transmission, which is a good thing. Okay guys, on the ground. Just gotta get Hefty out of the way and we can go for a little test drive here. Love it. New tires look really good on the wheels. Nice and polished up. Heck yeah. I'm thinking this is gonna ride a lot smoother than it was, so I'm excited. Love our hefty coronet. Hell yeah. All right, guys. Maiden voyage. Wish us luck. Thank you. Got tails. All right, let's do it. Looks a little better. Okay, here we go. Neutral drive. Immediately springing into action. Sweet. Love it. First, second, okay, let's make sure we get all three gears. First, second, third. All right. That is awesome. Yes. Final check. No leaks. Just power steering burn off still. Sounds good too. Tail shaft gasket looks good too. Beautiful. All right, we are at 80,656 miles. First, second, third. It feels like it winds out a little bit more going into third. Like it goes a little bit higher RPM than it used to. I guess I'll just monitor that and see how it feels driving around, but so far we're getting crisp, good shifts. I'm also noticing how it's feeling as I'm driving with these new tires. Definitely softer, a little bit more cushion in the road, more comfortable. It's awesome. Okay guys, pulled over. I'm gonna check torque on my lugs and also pull the dipstick on the transmission one more time to triple check and make sure that we are at the right level. Let's see. Okay, wiped it off clean. Fingers crossed. Money. We are just above the full line. So I will let out a tiny bit when we get back home, but that's a negligible amount to do any damage right now. We're good to keep rolling here on this test drive. You don't want to overfill your transmission, because if you do, it can actually start frothing up all that transmission fluid and hurt the way that it's performing. But you'd have to have it quite a bit full. Like I'm talking a couple quarts. What you're seeing there is maybe like a quarter of a quart. It's just a little bit, so we should be fine. Let's check underneath for leaks, make sure that our gasket's still holding up. Beautiful. Nice and dry. Hell yeah. The smoke you're seeing is just power steering fluid burning off the exhaust. Over here on the passenger side, same thing, nice and dry. I love it. Like I said, the power steering pump likes to leak down right here onto this front exhaust manifold after it sits for a number of days. I put some stop leak in there for the first time to see if that helps. When I drive the car regularly, it doesn't leak. If it sits for more than a couple days, it'll start to drip down. So maybe that'll help fix that problem. And checking our lugs. Well guys, the Wildcat is a happy old gal. I appreciate you all sticking along for this video. I know it's been a big one. I am so happy right now. We did it. Yeah! Listen to that happy old girl just purr along. Can you guys tell that I love this car? Because I really, really do. Man, she's feeling so good. Haven't exactly got up to highway speed yet. We're about to merge on, but I'm still very, very happy. Good grip there on that corner. We were doing about 60 right now. It also is going straight down the road. It feels very buttery. These new tires are great. Very happy with them. Cruising right now, 65. Nice and smooth. The steering wheel's not shaking at all. There used to be a little bit of a shake in the whole car going down the freeway, just because those tires were kind of old and out of round. And yeah, no, this is nice and smooth. It used to always ride nice and cozy to begin with, but yeah, just hitting those little bumps there on that crossway, I used to feel that a lot more. It's quieted the ride down as far as road noise goes. Get a little bit of noise here because this old weather stripping is bad on the window, but yeah, let's pull off here and come back on and go through the gears again. Nice. We even got those big brakes. here. There's no one on the road right now. We're gonna go for a little bit more moderate of an acceleration, because before when we were doing a really slow acceleration, it seemed to be kind of taking its time and shifting. Let's see what it does now for like a mild, moderate acceleration. Second, nice and crisp, yep. Third, yeah, it shifted at about 45, 46 miles an hour there, just a little bit faster overall speed than it used to, but honestly, I'm not worried about it. It still felt really good. All right, let's do it again. Second gear, a little harder this time. Yeah, about 46, 47 miles an hour. You know what? It's nice and crisp. I like it. I'm a happy man. I'm so happy. What a job that was, guys. Got the whole transmission rebuilt, reinstalled it, fought it all the way going in. Got new tires on the wheels, cleaned them up. Oh man, it's just running great. All right guys, it's the next day. We're gonna take a nice 40-mile trip down south, mostly highway driving. We'll just see how she does. I'm sure based off last night's test drive and everything you saw, she's kicking ass. So just gonna enjoy this beautiful Saturday morning cruise. Sunny blue skies. Can't beat it. That was a great cruise. She did really good. It's also downshifting really well, coming through the gears back down into a stop. So that's something else I didn't point out last night, but definitely can feel it as well. Nice. Oh, there we go. It shifted right about 40 there. Maybe she's just breaking in a little bit still. Still got plenty of torque in third gear too. Hell yeah. It's not every day you see an old 4,300 pound Buick just throwing its weight around, but she still tries to handle like she's a road car. She still tries to handle like she's a rally car. This thing's a big highway cream puff. Those of you that don't know, Alex and I drove this car 3 days across the United States, from Kendall, New York, all the way down to Salt Lake City back in 2021. Not one issue happened except the headliner popped out and Alex had to do a little bit of a road repair. Besides that, this car has just always been a gem since I've owned it. Okay, and once again, no leaks. That new pan gasket is amazing. Told you guys. Hell yeah. She's a happy cat. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this video. I really appreciate you sticking along to the end. That was a big job getting this car put back together, but it is running so good, it's so happy, and I couldn't be any happier myself. So, until the next video, we'll catch you later. How you doing? Can you guys tell that I love this car?